As a kid, growing up in the land of 10,000 lakes, I was always thrilled on Sunday mornings when my dad would take me and my three younger brothers fishing. We'd pack up tackle boxes and fishing poles and walk down to a friend's dock on Medicine Lake that was near our house, where we'd get situated for a few hours of fun. I didn't particularly love fishing, but I loved spending time with my dad. We'd set up and cast off and getting lots of laughs together, sometimes even catching a sunfish or two. One morning, when I was about 8 or 9, things started off the way they normally would. I was gaining confidence in my fishing, and with that came a more adventurous desire to cast off as far as I could possibly send the line. So this particular morning, I stood at the edge of the dock right up next to the tires that lined the side. And I opened the reel bail, and I brought it over my shoulder, and I let it go with great eagerness as I directed all of my energy to this effort. You can probably guess what happened next. With all that energy going towards the water, I propelled my own body right along with the pole. Over the tire I went, and right into the water with a huge splash. Terrified, I remember yelling with urgency for my dad to help me. Flailing in the water, I was uncertain about how this would end. My dad, seeming way too calm for this situation and preoccupied with my toddler brother, was saying something to me from the other side of the dock. But I couldn't quite hear him over the splashing of the water and my own cries. He calmly walked close to me. "Philip," he said, "stand up." And I remember thinking in my head, I hadn't quite heard him right in my frightened state. "Stand up! Stand up! Stand up!" And then I understood. I set my feet on the bottom of the lake, uneven but strong, and I stood up. And lo and behold, the water was at my knees. I laugh about it too. You see, sometimes we find ourselves in a moment when uncertainty doesn't allow us to feel the firm ground beneath. We might not even realize that it exists there. At that moment in the water, both uncertainty and fear were present. And in uncertainty, anticipation and even fear are nearly always present. Sometimes our uncertainty and fear are the same, and sometimes they are not. But we know this much. We live in an uncertain world. You see, uncertainty is all around us. The reality is that the potential for uncertainty exists in nearly every corner of our lives in both benign and scary ways. Will the day be sunny, rainy, or stormy? If it rains, will the power go out? Will the next scan be clean? Will there be an earthquake, wildfire, tornado, or some other natural disaster? Will gun violence impact me or anyone I know? Will political polarization diminish my rights or the rights of someone I love? Sometimes uncertainty exists in relationships. Will a friendship make it through a disagreement? Will a marriage overcome all its obstacles? Will we personally experience anti-Semitism as it sadly proliferates? The list of places where we feel uncertainty in this world is literally endless. And surely each of us have our own areas of uncertainty. What might they be for you in this moment? And within our own BJBE community, I've certainly heard and experienced the uncertainty that some may feel around new leadership, new ideas, and new practices, which is completely understandable and expected. We never fully know how things will turn out. Even if there's the potential for improvements or something better to come, sometimes it feels so uncomfortable that we'd rather keep things the way they are. And yet, we also know that uncertainty and fear are psychologically related. And this feeling can also lead to extraordinary creativity and the possibility of connection and perhaps carry even deeply positive connotations. We don't have to look any further than our tradition to realize that uncertainty is part of the human experience. In a midrash, we find that on the day that humanity was created, Adam and Eve witnessed their first sunrise. And at the end of that miraculous day, their joy turned to uncertainty and fear as the sun began to set and darkness overtook the evening sky. Was the world they knew ending? And so as the sun lowered, they ran and ran towards the horizon, towards the light. The Midrash says, to evade the uncertainty that darkness would bring. Navigating uncertainty is baked into the human condition. Yet we know, and they learned, that the sun will rise again. Even Adam and Eve couldn't outrun uncertainty. They were forced to figure out how to live with it, as do we. In Hebrew, there is no perfect word for uncertainty, but there are two words for fear, pachad and yirah. Pachad is associated with our ancestor Isaac. For Isaac was full of fear before the Akedah when he would have been offered as a sacrifice. This is the kind of fear when we feel afraid for ourselves, our bodies, and our emotional well-being. When we imagine worst-case scenarios. This fear separates us from others, and generally, it creates a fearful view of the world. Now, the second type of fear is yirah. And it can easily be translated as fear or awe or reverence, as in yirat Hashem, the fear or awe of God, or yamim noraim, these days of awe. Perhaps this type of fear is best described through the book of Jonah. When Jonah is sleeping and a great storm emerges, the verse teaches that the sailors had yirah for God exceedingly. Yirah is the combination of fear and awe. Instead of leading us to retreat, it makes us acutely aware of the profound majesty of life. In the language of psychotherapy, yirah could be understood as embracing fear and anxiety and learning to manage our response to it rather than letting these powerful emotions take over us. It's radical acceptance. The idea of accepting the anxiety that goes along with uncertainty as a part of our lives and integrating it into the daily experience of living. Pachad keeps us in the place of fear and uncertainty, while yirah allows us to transform our intention and live within it, towards awe. When our ancestor Abraham set out from his native land, we learn that along his journey he came across a palace, a birah doleket, a palace radiating light. Some sages teach that the palace was filled with an intense light of beauty, while others say that the Hebrew word doleket tells us that the palace was actually on fire. Clearly, this was no ordinary place. It was ablaze with brightness. And at this moment, we learn that Abraham found God's presence. So what did Abraham actually see? Did Abraham see divine light and beauty, or fire of destruction and desolation? If our world is a birah doleket, do we see the light as destructive or as sacred? Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel writes, "One may look upon the world with enthusiasm and absorb its wonder and radiant glory, and one may also see and be shocked by its ugliness and evil." So how do we hold both of these truths? How do we live with the uncertainty of all things but find possibility within it? We cultivate awe. You see, living with uncertainty requires the practice of awe. And I believe the synagogue is the perfect place to cultivate this. But how? Earlier this year, UC Berkeley psychologist Dasher Keltner published a book, Awe, the new science of everyday wonder and how it can transform your life. Keltner and his research lab sought to understand this essential question: how can we live a good life? One, they say, is enlivened by joy and community and meaning that brings us a sense of worth and belonging and strengthens the people and natural environments around us. His answer: find awe. So what is awe? According to Keltner, awe is the feeling of being in the presence of something vast that transcends our current understanding of our world. In some ways, this is Heschel's view of living life with radical amazement. For Keltner, when he felt awe, he says that he felt small and quiet, humble and pure. Boundaries that separated him from the outside world faded, and he felt surrounded by something vast and warm. His mind was open, curious, aware, and wondering. So where and how do we cultivate awe, and what might it feel like? Keltner teaches that in their research they found 8 wonders of life where we are most likely to feel awe and where we experience the emotion of awe. In moral beauty, the awe we feel when we witness another person's kindness or the courageous overcoming of suffering. In collective effervescence, the awe we feel when joining in a collective experience, when we are with others in unison with a shared goal. This could be swaying with people around us at a concert, chanting the same cheer at a sporting event, even praying in a communal space like we are doing today. It's that feeling of being in sync with everyone else around us. In nature, the awe we feel in the wild, the smallness we experience in the context of the natural world around us. In music, the awe we feel in listening to the sounds of instruments and singing, and the emotion we have in our bodies when we connect and get lost in a rhythm or a melody. In sacred geometry, the amazement we experience when we see the majestic creations of humanity, the beauty in visual design from the paintings on the wall of the museum to the art installations at the Botanic Garden, and the beauty of our own synagogue building. We experience awe in spirituality and religion, in witnessing the incredible fragile nature of life and death. And through epiphanies, which Keltner describes as those moments when we gain clarity that we had not realized before. This is, he says, the awe we feel when we suddenly understand essential truths about life. Unsurprisingly, in all of Keltner's research, he found many things that were not included in the places people found awe. He says money didn't figure into awe, nor did computers, smartphones, or any consumer purchases. He says awe occurs in a realm separate from the mundane world of materialism, money, and acquisition, and status signaling, a realm beyond the profane that many call sacred. And I believe every one of these pathways towards awe, that they are found and cultivated in a synagogue community. All 8 of these awe-inducing experiences I just mentioned take place at BJBE. The synagogue is our place of practice, our awe incubator, to help us navigate uncertainty by creating access points for noticing and experiencing more awe in the world. In the synagogue, we witness caring in the ways we support one another in illness and bereavement, or with a helping hand walking up to the bima or to a car in the parking lot. We feel collectively drawn in a moment of song and prayer, or to a particular instrument at Kol Shabbat. We find connection in nature and hikes or summer walks with our clergy and staff. In music that speaks to our souls during a concert. In learning something new in a class that changes our perspective on the world. And in participating in acts of social action and social justice. I know with certainty that awe exists in this place. And while many of us are here for the High Holy Days, these are but a few days in the vast calendar of potential experiences at BJBE. And I hope that you will join us this year. Being engaged in the life of our community gives us more opportunities to notice sacred moments so that we can experience more awe in this world. A number of years ago, I had the opportunity to travel to Terezin and tour the concentration camp outside of Prague. Within my tour, I was taken to a courtyard where a simple and unexpected door was visible. Through the door was a narrow hallway leading to a small room. I learned that this small sanctuary served as the Beit Knesset, the gathering place for Shabbat and holidays. In their daily uncertainty, the Jewish people at Terezin who created this sacred space found a way to ground themselves in the words and rituals to sustain them. And painted on the walls were Hebrew words and phrases of loving kindness, of longing for mercy and compassion in this world. To find myself in this sacred space within a concentration camp, to become aware of this symbol of holiness filled me with awe, both at their hope and in the simple existence of this unexpected place. And then, when I emerged back outside, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed something. Something I might not have noticed had I not already been feeling a sense of awe. In the small corner of that courtyard, through an opening in the cracked pavement, had grown a stunning sunflower. I keep a picture of that sunflower in my office. It reminds me that even in the experience of uncertainty, there's a place to root ourselves in the possibility of growth and beauty. It is a reminder for the potential of awe in the most unexpected times and places. And so, when the light of the day started to fade, Adam and Eve ran from the fear and uncertainty of the pending darkness. And in the midst of their uncertainty, they stopped running and instead created something sacred. You see, our tradition teaches that they took two stones and struck them together, making fire for the first time. In darkness and uncertainty, they created light and experienced awe. And the Midrash is a foundational narrative for Havdalah, a ritual which helps us bring light and clarity into our week after Shabbat. And just as the light of Havdalah helps us gain clarity and focus by illuminating the wonders of life, Yom Kippur does much the same. For on this day, Yom Gadol V'Norah, this day of great awe, there is no better time to engage in the practice of awe than right now. And just as Yom Kippur is a reminder of our work towards change and not a relinquishment of responsibility, cultivating awe doesn't make uncertainty and fear go away. Rather, it enables us to be in it with more awareness and strength, and opens up the possibility of feeling grounded in the radical amazement around us. And maybe then, we'll open the reel and cast ourselves into a world filled with abundant awe. Gemar Chatima Tova.
Modim, Anachnu, Lach, Shata Adonai Eloheinu, V'Elohei Avoteinu, Be'imotenu, Le'olam Avad. the sun that rises in the east, for the seas that roar a prayer, for the stillness of a snowfall, for the breath of autumn air, for the grasp within my fingers, for a mind that makes me whole, for the voice that God has given me to speak the truth within my soul. Modim, Anachnu, Lach. Modim, Anachnu, Lach. Modim, Anachnu, Lach. Le'olam avad. ועל 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 ניסך שבכל יום עמנו, שבכל יום עמנו. ועל ועל נפלאותיך וטובותיך ערב ובוקר וצהריים. For the laughter of the children, for the way they greet the day, with their endless stream of questions, they remind us how to play. And for the ones we call beloved, who take away our fear, they tell us without saying it, remember I am here. Remember I am here. Modim, Anachnu, Lach. Modim, Anachnu, Lach. Modim, Anachnu, Lach. Le'olam avad. Zur chayenu, magen yishenu, atahu lidor vadar. Modim, Anachnu, Lach. Le'olam vad.
This time I want to invite forward Steve Hartfield.